You're listening to Accents, a radio show for literature, art, and culture. I'm your host, Katerina Stoikova, and my guest is LeTonia Jones. Hi, LeTonia, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Well, I'm good, Katerina. A lot's happening, and I'm as good as I can be in a time like this. So I'm grateful to be here with you to share some of my words.
I'm grateful that you're with us and that you share your writing with us. I want to introduce you to our listeners and viewers with a few biographical notes. LeTonia Jones is a small business owner, writer, and poet living in Lexington, Kentucky. She is a guest columnist for the Herald Leader, working on a collection of poetry and writing memoir. LeTonia is a recipient of the Kentucky Foundation for Women Sallie Bingham Award and has partnered with various Kentucky arts organizations, artists, writers, and musicians to affect social change. What have you brought for us to read, LeTonia?
Well, given this time, pandemic and the racial violence that's taking place, I've been writing a lot. That's the one thing I think the pandemic did open up for me, was that I could either choose to disconnect, or I could dig into the writing, and I've been able to do that. And so some of these pieces will be very recent, and some of the things I will share are from things that are a little bit older. But it was funny in looking at my work. The same themes are there, whether we're in the streets, whether there's a pandemic or not. And I think it's just crystal clear, like this is what my life is right now,
And I haven't known you for terribly long time, but in the time that I've known you, I've noticed that you're not a person who chooses the easy way out. So I look forward to hearing what you have brought to us today.
Okay. As I mentioned before, I'm a little nervous, but I'll do it. These words have been given to me. This first piece is very recent. It was written on the 22nd of May, and so it borrows from the title, James Baldwin's book, The Fire Next Time. And I think this is very present to what we're experiencing now. I made a social media post where I said some things need to burn. And I think for some people, they assumed I meant the burning that's actually taking place. I do believe that is necessary, so I'll get clear about that. I do believe that. But when I was writing this was more about the evolution of myself and healing that I've experienced, and what had to burn. And so I feel like it is important in both arenas. This is both the personal, and sometimes it has to be in the physical world too. So I call this Fire This Time. Something wants to be birthed here. Something is trying to burst from the pod. Something wants to be delivered, revealed, seen clearly. Something wants to come alive, explode, erupt, evolve. Something wants to be birthed. It wants to be birthed now. It is being birthed disguised as death. Something wants to shift us, move us, make us want to be here, want to do it, appreciate our breath. Something wants to live and to love in us and through us, but something has to burn. Something has to burn up first. It has to smoke and combust, catch air and flame and spread, has to choke it out and cough it up and smother it, has to smolder. Something has to become embers and ash and be found in rubble. Something wants to be shaped and forged and chiseled, cleansed and softened by fire. Something wants to rise and return, rain down in sweetness and compassion and kindness and truth. Something wants to return as you. And I guess I'll go. So I work on criminal defense teams, and I'm what's called a mitigation specialist. And so the defense teams that I work on are for clients who are predominantly young Black men who are facing capital punishment or life in prison. And so I work to investigate their lives for the purpose of getting sentences that don't condemn them to death or to a life behind bars. So that's what my business is. In my bio, it was mentioned I own a small business. And so that's what I do there. And so I spend my time in and out of jails and with family members and in suffering. And had worked in prisons not doing advocacy work out of prisons in the early 2000s. And so this poem actually was one that was written in your class that I took with you, which changed my life, by the way, like made me fall in love with poetry again. I didn't consider myself a poet, but poems are what came to me first. And they've just been like this medicine for me. And I didn't recognize that quite possibly I'm what's called a poet. You helped me recognize that. So this piece refers to the work I do. And there's always a waiting before I meet a new client when I'm in that arena, in the jail. So this is called Baby's Breath. Clang, 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 I hear the chains before I see the boy. I wonder whose baby will waddle into this space. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. I hear the feet before I see the weight of the world on shoulders, not yet broad enough to carry a thing. There are parades of Black boys here, once called predators, then called property, now called nothing. I still smell baby's milk on Black boys' breath. They are paraded as men in jumpsuits. They wear orange and red and sorrow and pain. They are children denied fear and grief and time. Jangle, jangle, jangle. I hear the keys before I see a boy locked away, locked inside, locked outside of his right to dream. So there's that one. This is one that came in May as well. And I was thinking about the virus and also about the environment and this time that we've, had the invitation to get quiet is what I call it when Corona showed up. Literally, they're telling us to stay home. Now we're in a completely different situation, but this was written when I was thinking about the environment. Over the last 3 years, I've started to pay attention more to nature and the things that it has to offer. And I have reverence more so than I did in the past. And I kept hearing those reports and reading articles about how the earth was actually getting a breath now. So this is called No Need. You will only know the seasons by the budding of the trees. Your sight will become your ground and groundlessness your home. There is an invisible enemy, the orange clown said. I no longer wish to live a life where enemies dwell. I dwell among teachers and students become teachers. I don't know how to know, so I'm learning to feel. The virus is here, and while I do not want the sting of her presence, I respect the lashing of her tongue. Sit down and listen. Listen to songs the birds have been singing over all that man-made noise. Listen in the quiet to the beating of your own heart. Find that it beats in time with the land and the tree and dances to the cricket and moves purposefully with the snake. You are not the only thing breathing in this forest. Sit down, fall to your knees. This is your invitation to make it right. Hell has taken dominion in your mind. There is nothing here that belongs to you. It was never to be possessed. All these colors will not be possessed. All this time cannot be measured. There are secrets never to be revealed. Sit down, catch your breath. You need air, but air has no need for you. So there's that one. This is a piece I call What Lives Here. And I actually don't have an answer to this question. So it's here. What lives here? What lives here, neither vulnerable to time nor to touch, scarred by a past unlived, bound by memories unrecalled? What is doing and moving and breathing and taking the risks and feeling the triumph and the loss? What burned in that fire in those mountains that day when there seemed like only more life? What good is wisdom only belonging to flesh? What mourns for lives lost when there are still stains and blemishes and punctures and wounds among the living? What holds the grief of those willfully blinded, trapped in repetition, held tightly to guns and to ghosts? What holds that baby before human eyes and human hands? What pledges allegiance to a flag tattered and drenched in its own blood? What crumbles under the weight of all that liberty and cries out, "I can't breathe," and draws its last breath? What lets go after it is too late? What enters a church and sprays bullets on those who came to pray and dulls that pain and still believes we shall overcome? What holds back the rage and gnashes its teeth as it prepares to see this again and again and again? What sees the beginning of the end and knows its time has come, yet fights to preserve itself? What is immortality when there is no one left to remember? What weeps and grows in silence? This next piece is about some of the choices, some of the things that appear as choices in a time of pandemic. So I'm talking about a young girl who had to make a choice, and it's called Blurred. You called your rapist today. You called him daddy again. You called him daddy as if that is all he had ever been. You noted the lift in his voice when he realized the sound was you on the line. You felt his grin permeate space between. For a moment, he was daddy again, and there was warmth in your heart too. For a moment, the sound of his belly laugh was goals, and punchlines became your bridge. And then you remembered punchlines. Your fist, his face, his nose spilling blood, your blood swimming, swirling down a toilet drain, soon sewage. You remembered he tried to run, and that you know the embodiment of rage. You remembered the shotgun, the barrel pointed. You remembered you did not tremble. He did. You called your daddy today. You called him rapist again. You called him rapist as if that is all he had ever been. I'm so nervous, but I'll keep going. This piece came to me I write blessings as well. So I'm writing memoir, and then blessings seem to follow what I've written. And so this is a blessing. It doesn't have a short story to accompany it or to precede it. But I was with my friend and her children and her husband, and they're two boys that I've known since they were babies. And we were together on Memorial Day. And there was just this feeling that was underneath the joy that we were having together. And then, now we are in the streets again over police brutality against Black bodies. And so this is a blessing for these particular young boys. And I call this How Many Ways? How many ways can you ask your country to stop killing you? Ask it to stop stalking you and surveilling you and shooting you and squeezing life out of you. I stood looking at both of them, covered in caramel skin, looking like both their mother and their father. The oldest, 18, has a full ride to a university, has dreams to become an engineer, has always been special, started walking at 6 months old and talking 4 months later. The youngest by 2 years does flips, walks on his hands, leaps for the sake of leaping, captures you with his optimism. He loves animals and declared the day he spent with horses as his best day by far since the pandemic. They talk about their futures and hug their mother and gently wrestle and lovingly compete with their father. They are loved. I love them. We love them. I knew them before they took their first steps. Now they are stepping into manhood, but not just any manhood. They are moving into Black manhood, and my heart trembles. The oldest awaits a driver's license. Fear creeps down my spine. As I tossed Frisbee with them, laughed with them, reminisced with them, felt pride in them, the chill was there. Black manhood is a rarity. Not many Black boys make it. I kept praying. God, please let them grow up and grow old. Let them live. Let them be engineers or veterinarians or teachers, artists, preachers, lovers, husbands, fathers. Let them continue being their mother and father's sons in spirit and in flesh. Let them be confused and have time to figure it out, grow wisdom, grow gray, go bald. Let them fall in love and break up and cry and go back and try and finally let go to find love all over again. Let them walk alone on streets, in parks, in the day and in the night, simply to feel the air, admire the sky. Let them lie in moonlit fields and count the stars as they contemplate all that is beautiful in life. No, I don't know how many ways I can ask my country to stop. I'm not even the first to ask. We've been asking for 400 years. Why won't they just stop killing us? Somebody please answer me. So there's that one. And then I've just got 2 more. And so I joke with my friends that I also write something I like to call crush poetry. So I have secret crushes who often become my muses. And so this is one of those pieces. This is called For Now. What I don't say when I tell you I love you is that the sight of you allows me to exhale. I don't tell you how I hold my breath between sightings and anxiously await your eyes that I might breathe again. I don't tell you that when you clasp my hand in yours, I never want to let go. I don't tell you that I long to pull you closer, that I might feel your heartbeat next to mine. What I don't say when I tell you I love you is that the sound of your voice rings like peace in my ears. I don't tell you how the words you use echo deeply in my heart and move closer to my soul. Nor do I tell you how I notice the sound of your own exhalation when you hug me and how it warms my entire being and how I call on that sound as I close my eyes at night. I tell you that I love you, but I don't say how I create worlds with you and imagine different constellations and configurations of stars and of light with you. I don't say how thoughts of you make music come alive or make my colors brighter or allow poetry to flow from my pen. What I don't say when I tell you I love you is that there is so much I want to say, need to say, hope to say, find courage to say. But until then, I will simply tell you that I love you, at the same time trusting in what's not said for now. And then this is the final one, and I wrote this one in Letha Kendrick's class. Letha's been my teacher for years, but it's the first time I took a poetry class. So I took her class and then I ended up taking yours, but that was my first poetry class. And so this poem came in December of 2019. And this is another prayer. And it's in memory of my grandmother, Ada Bell Jones. She brought the cooker. It was the big dark blue one, speckled with tiny white dots. The one with the wobbly wooden handles, the one that reminds me of a starry night. This cooker signified it was my time now. This is the cooker Miss Ada used. This is the cooker she taught me to use. This is the cooker in which I will teach you. This, the cooker with over 100 years of love and of lessons learned and of life lived. This cooker's been heated up, been filled up, been stirred in and poured from, all this done with her hands, then with my hands, and soon your own. These apples, these are Jonathan's apples. These apples are sweet and a little bit sour. Life can be like that, you know, sweet and a little sour. I think somewhere in between the two is where grace lives. Peel, peel, peel. Now chop, chop, chop. We don't mind if some of those chunks are larger than the others. That's what makes it our apple butter. That's how you know 100 years of love and of lessons learned and of life lived is going into this batch. Now we'll use one of those mason jars over there on the counter. You're gonna fill that up with some water. And that little bit of water with all those apple chunks is gonna go a very long way. Let those apples boil down now. We're gonna give them some time. It's only with time you can really live a life, make some mistakes, recover from those mistakes, and then turn around and laugh till your stomach's tight and your cheeks hurt. Come on, look at this. Apples boiled down just right. Now comes the cinnamon, followed by the poignance of the cloves. I love the smell and the strength of cloves. Doesn't that remind you of your grandmother? And let's not forget the allspice. That's a mixture of all kinds of seasonings. I'm not quite sure what's in it. I've never researched. I like a little mystery. Now, of course, you can look it up, find out, especially with the internet. But a little tease of mystery just makes life more interesting, don't you think? You know your mother's a private person. And now we are getting to my favorite part. Did I tell you I like doing this with you? You are sweet, just like all this sugar. All my kids have a sweetness about them. I like that about all of you. 4 pounds of sugar plus 2 cups. You've got to taste your way through this. Sometimes it takes every granule to get the sweetness of over 100 years of love and of lessons learned and of life lived. And other times, even a 1/4 cup is just a bit too much. But we always want to have enough sugar. I told you we need the sweet and the sour of life. But you know me, my sweet tooth prefers more of the sweet. My prayer for you, daughter, is that your life is more of the sweet. Now, that's not to shame the sour, but as your mother, it is my prayer. Perhaps this whole batch is a prayer. Your grandmother was a praying woman. She was faithful, and I'm certain she faithfully prayed for all of us. Come to think of it, maybe it's her prayers that make this apple butter ours. Maybe that's how you know over 100 years of love and of lessons learned and of life lived goes into this batch. Be careful now. Those mason jars just came out of that boiling water. Place them on the towel. We have to let them dry. How does this taste to you? I think it's exactly what we want. Now let's fill these jars. It's okay if some spills on the side. Just use that cloth and wipe it down. We want the rim to be dry. Time to seal them up. We seal all those prayers and all of that sweetness into every one of those jars. And once we hear the top start to pop, our work is almost done. I told you the best part was adding the sweetness, but I really think the best part is giving it all away. The apple butter, is giving it away. The apple butter is how we show we care. We give away 100 years of love, of lessons learned, and of life lived. Our apple butter is more than 100 years of sweetness, and with it, we pass on enough prayer to last a lifetime. Daughter, I really love doing this with you. So that's about my mom and me making apple butter.
Beautiful poems, wonderful, moving. They broke my heart. Thank you, LeTonia. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is, so you are a guest columnist for the Herald Leader. Do you know what you're going to write about next?
I have been, I'm starting to understand the importance of my words and that I want them to be purposeful. And right now they are laden with just deep emotions and rage. And I understand that there's a purpose for rage. So words are coming to me about the next one. And I really think what I'll end up writing about is we've forgotten kinship. James Baldwin talked about the greatest sin of America and how it was in its denial to admit that all of the wrongs that were doing, all of the lynchings, all of the slavery, was actually done to family. You know, children of slave owners were bred on those plantations. And when those people were, my ancestors were hung, they're not just my ancestors. I have white blood in me, as does my mom. We've done some work on ancestry. We've met third cousins who are white and were descendants of the slave owner. So we were owned by our relatives. And I think that's a hard reckoning for America to understand, that it can do it to its own. And so I feel like in that might be what I choose to talk about in my next op-ed. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll see, because I'm angry right now. I don't want to send out angry words.
Well, I do know the importance of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sometimes we just need to put our emotion into the writing, and that's the best way, but everybody learns, and finds their own way of writing and expressing. And
Mm-hmm.
my question for you, my last question is, well, I'm curious about that artwork behind you. What can you tell us about it?
Oh, wow. So my one of my dearest, longest friends, her name is Tanya Lewis, and she is an artist. And so that's one of her pieces that she did like late 90s, I think. And so I've got several of her pieces on my wall, but I have it over where I house all my poetry. I don't know if you can see, I house a lot of it. I got books everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I house a lot of my poetry here, and I spend time in meditation, trying to figure out how to heal. And so I have her artwork placed over a space in my house that's important to me. But yeah, that's my friend Tanya's artwork.
Lovely. And LeTonia, we'll talk again, and I hope to have you again on Accents and hear more of your work. And I have a series of other questions. That's probably enough for today. Thank you so much for reading and for talking and for sharing so much of yourself with the listeners of Accents. I love you.
Thank you. It's an honor. I love you too. Thank you.